guys. So this is another audience pick that you guys wanted me to talk about. I know a lot of people who watch my channel and other XJW channels have never been Jehovah's Witnesses, and a lot of you are like, why would somebody convert as an adult? Why would somebody join the Jehovah's Witnesses when they were an outsider and had no ties to the witnesses? Like, they didn't grow up in a witness family, they just decided to convert as adults. Why would someone do that nowadays? You know, like, it's understandable, you know, if you were like born into this, but like, why would somebody who's out there free doing their thing, they're an outsider, and all of a sudden they join in their 30s, 40s, 50s? I mean, I can definitely say that thanks to social media and, you know, access to information, that less of that is happening. That demographic of like millennials and Gen Z especially, like, they're not joining. The number's a lot lower of people who are getting sucked in. Like, the millennials and Gen Z, if they're in the witnesses, it's because they were born into it. Back in the day in the 90s, the numbers were booming. I mean, that was the time. 80s and 90s, you know. Any OGs in the comments, if you're a former Jehovah's Witness watching this, attracted, you know, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. A lot of those outsiders were coming in, converting from different backgrounds. But so why would an outsider, you know, an adult outsider convert to the witnesses? Because it's easy to have perspective now. It's easy now in our day and age with the internet and social media to step back and have perspective and be like, dude, don't do it. Come on, man. The signs are right there. But for the people who did, and if you were one of those people, I want you to leave a comment and say what hooked you or what was the determining factor that made you convert. For those who did and who might be in the process now of converting, here are 4 common reasons why adults or outsiders who previously had nothing to do with the witnesses might be attracted to the organization. Number 1, they were recruited at a low point in their life. So a huge reason that I saw when I was growing up in the organization and saw people coming in and getting baptized and converting was that they were recruited at a low point in their life. A lot of them were single mothers. And you know, the witnesses look like this safe haven of happy, smiling people who love bomb them, take them into the fold. Everything seems so safe and happy for, you know, her and her child in those scenarios. And the person that they were studying with, the sister that they were studying with, their Bible teacher, they would get really attached to that person. That person would become like a new parent to them. And don't get me wrong, the person, the new mom in this situation, and I'm not saying it was only single mothers, but the single mother, she may have had doubts, but it was squelched at some point during her study. That tends to happen with a lot of people who study with Jehovah's Witnesses. They develop a good relationship with their Bible teacher, and so they just kind of tuck those doubts to the back of their brain. They become blinded by their emotion. You know, they feel sentimental towards their teacher. They're captivated by their teacher and their charisma. And it's not like the witness they're studying with is a bad person or has bad intentions. They're just doing their job. 2 people clicked, a relationship was formed. It's unfortunate. But yeah, remember there was one family when I was a teenager. It was a couple. They had a few little kids. The couple, they studied with another Jehovah's Witness couple. Anyways, they were living out of wedlock. Eventually, they got married. They got baptized together, and everybody was like, oh, it's so sweet. They got baptized. And then at one point, the husband went missing. And I remember asking my father, I was like, where's so-and-so? And apparently the husband, before he became a witness, had committed a crime. I don't know the nature of the crime. I don't know what happened. But he had committed a crime and gotten away with it. And when he became a witness, he turned himself in and went to prison. So he was like gone for a while. That was wild. But yeah, I mean, you know, the person might be going through some kind of depression. They're lonely, they're isolated, they're looking for community, you know, or a church to join. That's what they think the witnesses are. They don't get it. Like, they don't get the gravity of what they're getting involved in. And then they get sucked in for the same reasons. And then they're like, you know, I'm such a screw up, man. I gotta get right with God. You know, here's my chance. And they feel loved. But again, they don't get the gravity of what they're dealing with when they get involved with the witnesses. Another huge reason is they had health problems or there was a death in the family. And so that's obviously why they're depressed or struggling and lonely. And then, you know, you got the witnesses coming to your door talking about no death, no more pain, sickness, suffering. You know, paradise is going to solve all your problems. There's going to be a resurrection. You're going to see your loved ones again. So they present this dangling carrot to people who are really suffering. And that obviously appeals to the person because they're so distraught And it totally makes sense, if I was in their shoes and didn't know any better, I would want relief to my grief too. In fact, and I know every ex-J-Dub watching me right now knows I ain't telling no lie. They used to tell us, even if the person slams the door in your face, or they reject you, or they're not receptive to our message, you never know, they might be at a low point in their life at some point, right? You never know what will happen. They might experience a death in the family. Their circumstances change, and then maybe at that point, then they'll be receptive. Their hearts will be receptive to our message, to our sales pitch. Then they'll realize that they need the truth. Only then will they realize, unfortunately, that they need the truth, that they need us to give them hope. Literally exploit them when they're at their lowest. But of course, we didn't think of it that way. We're just brainwashed. So we're like, that's right. That makes sense. Stupid. Number 2, independence from their family. So I knew a family. This was right before I left the organization. They were in our congregation, and his parents, this guy was an elder. His parents were hardcore atheist. And of course, I was just like, geez, how did that happen? How did you become a witness with atheist parents? Mind you, I was still a witness at the time. This was in 2017. But yeah, so we were all hanging out at their house with his wife and kids and just chatting. And basically, he was just on his own spiritual journey. And that's where he landed. He, in a way he described it, it was like, I can't remember the full story and all the details, but basically it was his way of individuating or becoming his own person, separate of his parents, like having his own identity and not operating from his parents' atheistic identity or framework. And for a lot of people, again, ex-J-Dubs, you know what I'm talking about. A ton of Catholics converted in the 90s to the witnesses. And usually it was like their whole family was Catholic. Yeah, they just didn't feel spiritually fulfilled. They weren't getting something from their Catholic family. They appreciated that the witnesses, read their Bibles. Witnesses were all about the Bible, all about the Bible. Yes, I know it's their version of the Bible, it's their interpretation, but that was their line of reasoning. The point is they wanted to branch away from Catholicism and their family heritage and do their own thing. Like they felt like they were doing the right thing. They were joining a movement, this spiritual movement that was going to change the world. Sound familiar? Like every other cult who, thinks they're part of some elite humanitarian group or change. They were hypnotized by a movement that was going to bring paradise on earth. And, it was their way of claiming their independence, their spiritual or religious independence from what they'd been taught in the church. And sometimes people were just the black sheep of their family. So the witnesses were just like a new group to attach themselves to. They found community with the witnesses and independence from their family. Number 3, secular life left a void. Now, another big reason that people converted was that their secular life just wasn't enough. Like they didn't grow up with religion. They didn't really grow up in a religious household, or maybe religion played a very small role in their family, a really insignificant role. Higher education, money, that was at the forefront of their home life. And, that's what they grew up with. That's all they knew, but they felt a void. Yeah, they went to college. They're smart. They're successful. They had a career. They made tons of money. This was like the yuppie 80s. Hence the shoulder pads. Maybe they were anti-war and they appreciated that the witnesses were politically neutral and didn't go to war. Or another reason that I've heard from people, when I asked them, they told me directly that this is the thing that got them. The witnesses were studious. Like they really appreciated, I've heard that word used repeatedly. They appreciated that the witnesses were really studious. And again, I speak no lie. They were more studious back then, which is why a lot of them left. That's what led to the great apostasy. The great apostasy of the 80s. Raymond Franz, huge, famous Raymond Franz, crisis of conscience, former governing body member. He was smart. He did his research. He became apostate, and so many people became apostate because they were studious. Most people at the top, they figure shit out because that's a common assumption. That's a very popular assumption about people who join cults. You don't join a cult. You're joining what you think is a good idea. And then you realize, oh shit, I bought into something that was like a bait and switch. Only a dumb person would join a cult. A lot of people were seduced by the witnesses because the witnesses were studious and cross-referencing and highlighting everything and had 600 books in their living room, knew their Bible back and front. So, people who were interested in the witnesses saw this and saw that they weren't, the witnesses weren't just sort of sitting in church, just feel good, the freewheeling feel good 80s televangelism. So a lot of smart, secular people were turned off by that. So they wanted to fill their spiritual need, but that didn't appeal to them. They appreciated the modesty, vibe that the witnesses had. Turned off by the hypocrisy of the rich televangelists they saw on TV, mainstream religion getting involved in politics and war. So yeah, a lot of people who converted into the Jehovah's Witnesses, were smart, successful. They felt a spiritual void, wanted to fill that spiritual need, and they got sucked into the wrong group. Number 4, they're narcissistic. Jehovah's Witnesses believe they are the one true religion and everyone else is wrong. I don't care what they tell you at the door. Oh, we're just sharing Bible scriptures. Oh, go get your Bible. You and I will do a little back and forth and we'll chat about the Bible. They believe you are wrong. They're there to prove you wrong. And if you just get the right person, and I don't care, rich, poor, doesn't matter, educated or not, if they have strong narcissistic tendencies or delusions of grandeur, the witnesses will appeal to them. And because they're so stubborn, they're most likely really lonely. Grown kids or whatever have nothing to do with them and don't want to be around them, but it doesn't click and it doesn't matter. They're going to be on the right side of history. Obstinate, insulting of others who disagree with them, and completely incapable of seeing their own flaws. And here's the thing, a lot of this exists within witness lineage. This is rampant in the organization. Just as a sidebar, a lot of witnesses were raised by abusive narcissistic parents, and they were surrounded in an ideology. The whole family was part of an organization that thinks they're the best, they're God's chosen people. That's how they grew up. And unfortunately, a lot of those people became narcissists themselves. And then they had kids and repeated the cycle. Round and around we go. The organization is a breeding ground for narcissism and mental illness. I'm not talking about somebody who's having a hard time and needs a Prozac. They live in an echo chamber where everyone tells them they're correct and righteous. So anyways, these are just a few reasons that I saw and heard firsthand. If you want to go ahead and add your story, go for it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Me and my shoulder pads, really appreciate it. A big shout out to my channel members for your continued support and for everyone who continues to tune in to Stop the Shunning. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you soon.